The diplomatic ship Horizon's Edge moved slowly through the darkness of space. Lieutenant Commander Kyle Patterson stood near the main viewport, watching as the massive alien station grew larger ahead of them. The station was built into an asteroid, with metal towers and weapon platforms covering every surface. It looked more like a fortress than a meeting place. Kyle was 34 years old and had spent 12 years in the military before joining the diplomatic corps. He was the security officer for this mission, responsible for keeping everyone safe. His job was usually boring, standing in corners during meetings and checking doors. Today felt different. "Impressive, isn't it?" Captain Greg Holland said, walking up beside Kyle. The captain was a tall man with gray hair and a calm expression that never changed, even when things got dangerous. "It's big," Kyle replied, "and heavily armed. I count at least 50 weapon emplacements just on this side." "The Veilthar don't do anything small," Holland said. "Intelligence reports say they're a warrior culture. Everything is about strength and combat prowess for them." Kyle nodded. He had read the files. The Veilthar were an insectoid species that controlled a large part of this sector. They had never met humans before. This meeting was supposed to establish first contact and maybe set up trade agreements. The key word was supposed to. Ambassador Lisa Martinez joined them at the viewport. She was a short woman in her 50s, with dark hair pulled back in a tight bun. She had negotiated treaties with 17 different species and never failed to reach an agreement. Kyle respected her skill, even if he thought she was sometimes too optimistic about alien intentions. "Gentlemen," she said, "are we ready?" "As ready as we can be," Holland answered. "The Veilthar Queen has agreed to meet us in her throne chamber. You'll have me, Lieutenant Commander Patterson, and 2 junior diplomats with you, Jennifer Wu and Daniel Foster," Martinez confirmed. "Good choices. They're both calm under pressure." Kyle hoped that would be enough. The Veilthar had made it clear they didn't think much of humans. The preliminary communications had been full of barely concealed contempt. The Veilthar thought humans were weak because they were small and had no natural weapons or armor. The ship docked with a heavy clang that echoed through the hull. Kyle checked his sidearm. A ceremonial weapon that was more for show than actual use. Firing projectile weapons inside a space station was dangerous. A missed shot could puncture the hull and kill everyone. Still, it made him feel slightly better to have it. The airlock opened. 4 Veilthar soldiers stood waiting on the other side. Kyle had seen pictures, but they didn't prepare him for the reality. The Veilthar were massive, each one at least 8 feet tall. They had 4 arms, each ending in sharp claws. Their bodies were covered in natural armor plates that looked harder than steel. Crystalline structures grew from their shoulders and heads, glittering in the station's harsh lighting. Their faces were insectoid, with compound eyes and mandibles that clicked constantly. One of the soldiers stepped forward and spoke in surprisingly good English. "Ambassador Martinez, you will follow us. Do not touch anything. Do not wander. Stay with the group." "Of course," Martinez said smoothly. "We're grateful for your hospitality." The soldier made a clicking sound that might have been laughter. "Hospitality, yes, this way." They walked through corridors that seemed designed to intimidate. The ceilings were 30 feet high. Weapon displays covered the walls, showing everything from simple blades to massive energy cannons. Every 100 feet, they passed more Veilthar soldiers, all armed and watching the humans with what looked like amusement. Kyle heard their comments. The Veilthar didn't bother to whisper. So small, like children. Soft skin, no armor at all. How do they survive? 4 limbs instead of 4 arms. Weak. I heard they need weapons for everything. Can't even fight with their own bodies. Daniel Foster, one of the junior diplomats, looked nervous. Jennifer Wu kept her face calm, but Kyle saw her hands were clenched. Only Ambassador Martinez seemed completely unfazed, walking with her head high and a slight smile on her face. They entered a massive chamber that could only be the throne room. It was circular, at least 200 feet across, with a domed ceiling that showed the stars outside through transparent metal. Weapons covered these walls too, thousands of them, representing centuries of Veilthar military history. At the far end, On a raised platform sat Queen Zarthix. She was even larger than her soldiers, perhaps 9 feet tall, with 6 arms instead of 4. Her armor plates were darker, almost black, with purple crystalline structures growing from her body. She wore no clothing except for bands of metal around her limbs that were engraved with symbols. Her compound eyes reflected the light like mirrors. Standing beside her throne was another Valthar, slightly smaller but more heavily armed. Kyle recognized the rank insignia from his briefings. This was Commander Krillnax, the military advisor. Ambassador Martinez, the Queen said. Her voice was deep and resonated through the chamber. You represent humanity. I am Queen Zarthix, of the Valthar Empire. Speak your purpose. Martinez stepped forward. Your Majesty, humanity seeks peaceful relations with the Valthar. We offer trade, cultural exchange, and mutual defense agreements. We believe our species can benefit from cooperation. Cooperation, the Queen repeated. What can humanity offer the Valthar? You have no natural weapons, no armor. Your bodies are soft and weak. Your technology is adequate, but not superior to ours. Why should we ally with you? Kyle saw Martinez's jaw tighten, but her voice remained diplomatic. Humanity may lack physical advantages, but we have other strengths. We're adaptable, creative, and determined. We've survived and thrived on a harsh world through intelligence and cooperation. Commander Krillnax clicked his mandibles. Intelligence, cooperation, soft words. In the galaxy, strength matters. The strong survive. The weak become prey or servants. Where do humans fit in this order? We fit wherever we choose to fit, Kyle said before he could stop himself. Everyone turned to look at him. Martinez shot him a warning glance. The Queen leaned forward slightly, her compound eyes focusing on Kyle. The soldier speaks, she said. You disagree with my commander? Kyle knew he should apologize and step back, but something about the dismissive tone made him angry. I mean no disrespect, Your Majesty, but strength comes in many forms. Physical power is just one type. Interesting, the Queen said. Commander Krillnax, what do you think of this claim? The commander walked down from the platform, approaching Kyle. Up close, he was even more intimidating. Kyle had to tilt his head back to meet his eyes. I think, Krillnax said slowly, that humans are weak and know it, so they create philosophies to explain their weakness as strength. It is sad, really. Before Kyle could respond, an alarm blared through the chamber. Red lights flashed. The Valthar soldiers immediately drew their weapons and formed defensive positions. Report! The Queen commanded. A soldier spoke rapidly in the Valthar language. The Queen's mandibles clicked together rapidly, a sign of stress Kyle had read about. The creche, she said. They're attacking. A large raiding party has breached the outer defenses. More alarms sounded. The floor trembled from distant explosions. Commander Krillnax barked orders, and soldiers rushed out of the throne room toward the fighting. Captain Holland touched his communicator. Horizon's Edge. Report status. Sir, the station is under attack. We're sealed in the docking bay. No damage to the ship yet. Stay ready for emergency departure, Holland ordered. The Queen stood. Ambassador, your safety is guaranteed. My soldiers will escort you back to your ship once the immediate threat is neutralized. Your Majesty, if we can help, Martinez began. You cannot, the Queen said flatly. This is war. Return to your ship and wait. More soldiers rushed past, heading toward the sounds of battle. Kyle noticed something the others hadn't. In the chaos of deployment, a section of the throne room had been left unguarded. There was a maintenance entrance in the far wall, and he could see movement in the shadows beyond it. He touched Martinez's arm and pointed. She saw it too. Her eyes widened. 3 massive shapes emerged from the maintenance corridor. They were reptilian, covered in armored scales, with claws that scraped against the metal floor. Their eyes glowed yellow in the dim light, Kresh warriors. And they were between the humans and the only exit. The nearest Valthar soldiers were 2 corridors away, fighting the main Kresh force. No one had noticed this secondary breach. Kyle's hand moved to his sidearm, then stopped. The throne room had transparent sections in the ceiling. A projectile weapon could breach the hull. He looked at the Kresh warriors, who were now moving toward the humans with clear hostile intent. He took off his jacket and unbuckled his weapon belt, setting them both aside. "Kyle, what are you doing?" Martinez hissed. "My job," he said, and walked forward to meet the Kresh with empty hands. The first Kresh warrior stopped, confused. It tilted its massive head, trying to understand why this small creature was approaching without weapons. The other 2 Kresh spread out, flanking positions coming naturally to predators. Kyle kept his breathing steady. He had fought in close combat dozens of times during his military career, but never against something this big. The Kresh stood 7 feet tall, and probably weighed 400 pounds. Its claws were 6 inches long, and looked sharp enough to cut through steel. Behind him, he heard Ambassador Martinez moving the junior diplomats back toward the throne platform. Captain Holland had his communicator out, calling for help. But Kyle knew reinforcements wouldn't arrive in time. The Kresh warrior lunged. It was fast. Faster than Kyle expected. But he had trained against speed his entire life. He didn't try to block or stop the attack. Instead, he moved sideways, letting the creature's momentum carry it past him. As it went by, Kyle drove his elbow into the joint where the Kresh's leg met its hip. The creature roared and stumbled. Not from pain. Its armor was too thick for that. But Kyle had disrupted its balance. And for a moment, the Kresh warrior was off-center. Kyle didn't waste the opportunity. He moved in close. Too close for the Kresh to use its claws effectively. His fist struck the creature's throat. Not hard enough to damage it, but enough to make it gag and step back. From the corner of his eye, Kyle saw Valthar soldiers arriving at the throne room entrance. They stopped, watching. Queen Zarthix had moved to a secure viewing platform with Commander Krilnax. She raised one of her hands, signaling her soldiers to hold position. She wanted to see what the human would do. The first Kresh warrior recovered and attacked again, this time more carefully. It swept its claws in wide arcs, trying to catch Kyle with its reach advantage. Kyle ducked under the first swipe, rolled away from the second, and came up inside the creature's guard again. This time he went for the eyes. His fingers jabbed toward the Kresh's face. The warrior flinched back instinctively, and Kyle used that moment to grab its arm. He pulled, twisted, and used the Kresh's own weight against it. The creature toppled forward, and Kyle's knee came up to meet its descending head. The impact sounded like a hammer hitting wood. The Kresh warrior hit the ground hard, and didn't get up immediately. "Impossible," Kyle heard Commander Krilnax say from the platform. "The human has no weapons, no claws, no natural armor. How is it winning?" The queen didn't respond. She just watched, her compound eyes tracking every movement. The other 2 Kresh warriors attacked together. Kyle had been expecting this. Fighting multiple opponents required different tactics. He couldn't afford to focus on one while the other attacked from behind. He moved constantly, keeping both Kresh warriors in his line of sight, using the throne room's space to his advantage. When one attacked, he positioned himself so the other couldn't reach him without getting in its companion's way. The Kresh on his left lunged. Kyle sidestepped and pushed, sending the creature stumbling into the path of the other one. They tangled briefly, and Kyle used those precious seconds to strike pressure points on the nearest Kresh. His knuckles drove into nerve clusters along the creature's spine. The Kresh hissed in pain and anger. "He knows their anatomy," a Valthar soldier said, surprised. "How does he know where to strike?" Kyle didn't know Kresh anatomy specifically, but he understood general principles. Most species had vulnerable points. Joints were weak. Eyes were sensitive. The base of the skull was crucial. You just had to find them and exploit them. The second Kresh warrior, the one Kyle had struck first, was getting back to its feet. Now he faced 3 opponents again. His arms were starting to ache, and he had a cut on his forearm from where one claw had grazed him. But he couldn't stop. If he stopped, he died. Worse, The diplomats behind him died. The Kresh changed tactics. Instead of lunging, they advanced slowly, claws extended, trying to corner Kyle against the wall. It was smarter strategy. Kyle looked around for options. The throne room had weapon displays on the walls, but using them felt like admitting defeat. More importantly, the Queen was testing him. She wanted to see what humans could do without weapons, so he would show her. Kyle grabbed his jacket from where he had dropped it. The Kresh hesitated, unsure what he was doing. He wrapped the jacket around his left arm, creating a makeshift shield. Then, he charged. The Kresh weren't expecting aggression. They were predators, used to prey that ran or cowered. Kyle ran straight at the middle warrior, jacket-wrapped arm raised to block. The Kresh slashed at him. Its claws caught the jacket but didn't penetrate to his skin underneath. Kyle kept moving forward, getting inside the creature's reach again. His right fist drove upward, catching the Kresh under its jaw. The creature's head snapped back. Kyle followed with a palm strike to its chest, pushing it backward into one of the weapon displays on the wall. Metal clattered as the display broke. The other two Kresh attacked from both sides. Kyle dropped low, and their claws met each other instead of him. They roared in frustration. He swept his leg out, catching one Kresh behind the ankle. It fell, crashing into its companion. "He fights like water," Queen Zarthix said from her platform. "Always moving. Never where they expect him to be." "But he must tire," Commander Krillnax replied. "He bleeds. I can see it. He cannot maintain this." Kyle could hear them talking. His lungs burned, and his muscles screamed. The cut on his arm was bleeding more than he had thought. He was tired, but he had learned a long time ago that humans could push beyond tiredness when they needed to. Pain was just information. Exhaustion was just a feeling. You could ignore both if the stakes were high enough. The Kresh warrior he had pushed into the wall display grabbed a weapon from the broken rack. It was a Veilthar blade, curved and heavy. Now the fight had changed again. The armed Kresh swung the blade. Kyle ducked and rolled. The blade hit the floor where he had been standing, sparking against the metal. The Kresh was strong but clumsy with the weapon. It wasn't trained with blades. It was just using its natural strength to swing a sharp object. Kyle could work with that. He dodged another swing, then another. Each time, he moved closer instead of farther away. The Kresh grew frustrated, swinging wider and harder, putting more strength behind each attack. That was exactly what Kyle wanted. He waited for the right moment. When the Kresh committed fully to a massive overhead swing, Kyle stepped inside the swing's arc. The blade passed behind him, so close he felt the air move. His hand caught the Kresh's wrist. He twisted, using the creature's momentum and grip strength against it. The blade fell from the Kresh's hand, and Kyle caught it. For a moment, he held the weapon. The Veilthar soldiers tensed. Queen Zarthix leaned forward. Kyle tossed the blade aside. It clattered across the floor, far from any of the combatants. "He refuses the weapon," the Queen said softly. "Interesting." The unarmed Kresh warrior stared at Kyle with what might have been respect. Or maybe just more caution. It didn't matter. The fight wasn't over. Kyle pressed his advantage. He attacked the Kresh warrior he had disarmed, driving forward with a combination of strikes. Elbow to the ribs, knee to the thigh, palm strike to the side of the head. Each blow was calculated, aimed at specific targets. The Kresh tried to grab him, to use its strength advantage. Kyle let it catch his jacket-wrapped arm, then used the grip as an anchor point. He planted his foot against the Kresh's leg and pushed, twisting his body. The leverage was enough. The massive creature lost its balance and fell. Kyle followed it down, maintaining control. He locked his arm around the Kresh's neck, applying pressure. Not enough to kill, just enough to restrict blood flow to the brain. The Kresh thrashed, its claws scraping against Kyle's jacket and the floor. But Kyle held on, keeping the pressure steady. After 15 seconds, the Kresh warrior went limp, unconscious but alive. 2 down, 1 to go. Kyle released the unconscious Kresh and stood slowly. His legs shook slightly. Sweat ran down his face. The cut on his arm had soaked through his jacket sleeve, but he faced the last Kresh warrior, hands raised, ready to continue. This last warrior was the largest of the three. It had watched both its companions fall and learned from their mistakes. It didn't charge. It didn't rush. It circled slowly, looking for an opening. The human is injured, Commander Krillnax observed. Exhausted. This last Kresh will finish him. Perhaps, Queen Zarthik said. But the human has defeated two already. Do not assume the outcome. Kyle and the Kresh circled each other. The throne room was silent except for their breathing. Even the distant sounds of battle seemed to fade away. This was just the two of them now, predator and prey, except neither was sure which was which. The Kresh feinted left, then attacked right. Kyle barely got his jacket arm up in time. Claws shredded the fabric but didn't reach skin. He countered with a kick to the Kresh's knee. The creature grunted but didn't fall. They broke apart and circled again. Kyle's vision blurred slightly from exhaustion. He blinked it away. Focus. Stay focused. The Kresh attacked again, a straightforward charge meant to overwhelm him with pure power. Kyle didn't try to dodge this time. He stepped forward to meet the charge, dropping low at the last second. The Kresh's claws passed over his head. Kyle's shoulder drove into the creature's midsection, all his remaining strength behind the impact. The Kresh's breath exploded out. Kyle straightened, lifting, using his legs and back. The creature, off balance and winded, toppled over Kyle's shoulder. He guided its fall, slamming it to the ground with controlled force. Before the Kresh could recover, Kyle was on top of it. His arm wrapped around its neck from behind. His legs locked around its torso, immobilizing its arms. It was the same chokehold he had used on the second warrior. The Kresh thrashed violently, stronger than the others. Kyle held on, muscles burning, refusing to let go. The creature's movements became weaker, slower. Finally, it went still. Kyle held the choke for 3 more seconds, then released. He rolled off the unconscious Kresh and lay on his back, chest heaving, staring at the transparent ceiling and the stars beyond. Footsteps echoed across the throne room floor. Heavy footsteps. Kyle tried to push himself up, but his arms wouldn't cooperate. He managed to roll onto his side, reaching for where he thought he had dropped his sidearm. A 4-fingered hand gently pushed him back down. Rest, human. The threat has been neutralized. Kyle looked up to see Commander Krillnax standing over him. The Vilethar commander's compound eyes reflected the overhead lights. Behind him, Velthar soldiers were binding the unconscious Kresh warriors with heavy restraints. Ambassador Martinez, Kyle managed to say. The diplomats. They are unharmed, Krillnax said. You protected them, alone. Unarmed. He paused, mandibles clicking. I did not think it possible. Queen Zarthix descended from her viewing platform, her 6 arms moving with surprising grace. She was even more intimidating up close. Kyle tried again to sit up, and this time Krillnax helped him, supporting his back with 2 of his 4 arms. Stay still, Lieutenant Commander Patterson, the Queen said. You are injured. Just cuts and bruises, Your Majesty. Kyle replied, though breathing hurt and his left arm throbbed with each heartbeat. Ambassador Martinez rushed over, followed by Captain Holland. Jennifer Wu and Daniel Foster stayed back, but watched with obvious concern. Martinez knelt beside Kyle, examining his injuries with a practiced eye. You fool, she said, but her voice was warm. You brave, magnificent fool. Had to be done, Kyle said. Couldn't risk weapons in here. The ceiling. Yes, Queen Zarthix said. We noticed. You chose to fight with your bare hands rather than risk breaching the hull. This shows wisdom, along with courage. She looked at the 3 bound Kresh warriors. Explain to me what I witnessed. You defeated 3 Kresh warriors without weapons, without natural armor or claws. How? Kyle took a breath, trying to organize his thoughts through the pain and exhaustion. Training. Your Majesty. Technique. Humans have been fighting without weapons for thousands of years. We had to learn because we don't have claws or armor. Thousands of years, Commander Krillnax repeated. You have studied combat for thousands of years? Different human cultures developed different fighting styles, Ambassador Martinez explained, taking over while Kyle caught his breath. Wrestling, boxing, martial arts from dozens of regions. We've refined these techniques across generations. A Veilthar medical officer arrived, carrying supplies. She was smaller than the soldiers, with more delicate features, but still towered over the humans. She examined Kyle's arm where the claw had cut him. Superficial, she announced. The bleeding looks worse than it is. You were lucky. She cleaned and bandaged the wound with efficient movements. Her touch was surprisingly gentle for someone with such large hands. Not luck, Queen Zarthix said. Skill. I watched him move. Every action had purpose. He did not waste motion. He did not fight with anger or fear. He fought with precision. That's what we're taught, Kyle said. The medical officer had given him something for the pain, and his head was clearing. Technique beats strength. Intelligence beats size. Understanding your opponent beats, relying on natural advantages. Captain Holland had been watching the Veilthar soldiers secure the Kresh warriors. Now he turned back to the group. Your Majesty. What's the status of the main attack? Contained, the Queen replied. The Kresh assault has been repelled. They will not return soon. She tilted her head, studying Kyle. But this was a coordinated attack. The main force at the front entrance, this smaller force at a secondary access point. They planned to catch us divided, and they would have succeeded, Commander Krillnax added, if not for this human. When our forces deployed to the main breach, this area was left undefended. The Kresh would have killed the diplomatic party and pushed into our command center from behind. Queen Zarthix clicked her mandibles. A sound Kyle was learning indicated deep thought. You saved not just your own people, Lieutenant Commander. You saved Veilthar lives as well, perhaps many lives. I was just doing my job, Your Majesty. No, the Queen said firmly. You exceeded your role. An escort soldier would have moved the diplomats away from danger. You moved toward it. This is the action of a warrior, not merely a guard. The medical officer finished with Kyle's arm and moved to check his ribs. Kyle winced as she pressed on his left side. Bruised, not broken, she declared. You should rest for several days. Can't, Kyle said. We're in the middle of a diplomatic mission, which just became significantly more interesting, Ambassador Martinez said. She looked at Queen Zarthix. Your Majesty, I apologize for the interruption to our meeting. If you wish to postpone further discussions, postpone? The Queen's mandibles clicked again, this time in what Kyle thought might be amusement. Ambassador, I just witnessed something that challenges everything I believed about humanity. We will not postpone. We will continue our discussion immediately, she gestured. And Veilthar soldiers brought chairs. They were designed for Veilthar bodies, but the humans made do. Kyle sat carefully, favoring his bruised ribs. The medical officer stayed nearby, watching him with concern. Before the attack, Queen Zarthix began. Commander Krillnax questioned whether humans qualified as a warrior species. He suggested you were weak due to your lack of natural weapons and armor. I shared this view. She looked directly at Kyle. I was wrong. I was wrong. Your Majesty, Commander Krillnax said. With respect, one skilled human does not represent the entire species. Perhaps Lieutenant Commander Patterson is exceptional among his kind. I'm not, Kyle said. Most humans learn to fight. It's part of our culture. Explain, the Queen commanded. Kyle looked at Ambassador Martinez, who nodded encouragement. On Earth, he began, humans don't have natural weapons. We're not the strongest or the fastest or the most durable. So we developed our minds and our techniques. Every human culture has some form of combat training. Some practice martial arts as children, others learn wrestling or boxing. Soldiers like me receive advanced combat instruction. How many forms of unarmed combat do humans practice? Commander Krillnax asked. Hundreds, Kyle replied. Maybe thousands if you count regional variations. Some focus on strikes, using fists and feet as weapons. Others focus on grappling and throwing opponents. Some teach how to disable attackers without permanent injury. Others teach lethal techniques. The Vaelthar exchanged looks. Their mandibles clicked in a pattern Kyle couldn't interpret. "This is difficult to believe," Commander Krilnak said. "The Vaelthar have our combat traditions, of course, but they involve weapons and our natural advantages. We have 4 arms, strong exoskeletons. When we fight without weapons, we simply use our physical superiority." "Which works," Kyle said carefully, "until you face someone who doesn't rely on physical superiority, someone who's trained to defeat larger, stronger opponents." "Like you," Queen Zarthix said. "Like most humans," Kyle corrected. "I'm trained for military combat." But a civilian with martial arts training could have done similar things, maybe not against 3 Kresh at once, but against 1 or 2, yes. Captain Holland spoke up. "Your Majesty, if I may, we have training footage on our ship, recordings of human combat instruction. If you're interested, we could share them." The Queen's eyes seemed to brighten. "Yes. I wish to see this." "Commander Krilnax." "Arrange it, Your Majesty," the commander said hesitantly. "Are you certain? These humans may be attempting to deceive us. This could be propaganda." "I watched 3 Kresh warriors fall to 1 unarmed human," the Queen replied. "This was not propaganda. This was reality." She turned back to the humans. "But I have questions. Lieutenant Commander Patterson, you said you chose not to use weapons to avoid breaching the hull. Yet during the fight, you disarmed a Kresh warrior who had taken one of our blades. You held that blade, then you threw it away. Why?" Kyle met her compound eyes steadily. "Because you were testing me, Your Majesty. Testing all of us. You wanted to see what humans could do without weapons. Taking that blade would have ended the test." Silence filled the throne room. Then Queen Zarthix made a sound that might have been laughter. A series of rapid clicks and whistles. "You are correct," she said. "I was testing you. When the Kresh broke through, I ordered my soldiers to hold position. I wanted to see how humans responded to real danger. Not the artificial danger of a negotiation room." She leaned forward. "Tell me honestly. Were you angry that I did not send immediate help?" Cries. Kyle considered lying, then decided against it. "Yes, Your Majesty. For a moment. Then I understood why you did it. And I decided to give you a show worth watching." Another series of clicks. "You did. Oh, you certainly did." The Queen stood, and everyone else stood with her. "Ambassador Martinez, I was prepared to reject your alliance proposal. I thought humans were soft creatures who relied on technology because they lacked natural strength. I believed you would be a burden rather than an ally. And now?" Martinez asked carefully. "Now I have seen that humans weaponize their intelligence in ways we never considered. You train for thousands of years to compensate for physical disadvantages. You adapt to any opponent. You use technique where we use brute force." She looked at Kyle again. "And you fight with honor. You could have killed those Kresh warriors. You chose to disable them instead. This shows restraint and wisdom." Commander Krilnak stepped forward. "Your Majesty, if I may speak." "Speak, Commander. I was wrong about humans. I admit this freely, but I would like to understand more." "Lieutenant Commander Patterson, would you be willing to demonstrate your fighting techniques to our soldiers? Not in combat, but in instruction. I believe my warriors could learn valuable skills." Kyle looked at Ambassador Martinez. She gave a small nod. "I'd be honored, Commander," Kyle said. "Though I'm not sure how well human techniques will translate to Vaelthar physiology. You have 4 arms, which gives different options. Then we learn together," Commander Krilnak said. "You teach us human methods. We show you Vaelthar traditions. Exchange of knowledge. That," Ambassador Martinez said with a smile, "sounds like the beginning of an alliance." Queen Zarthix nodded slowly. "Perhaps it is. But there is more to discuss." For now, the humans will rest and recover. We will reconvene tomorrow. Commander, arrange accommodations for our guests. Comfortable ones. Yes, Your Majesty. As they prepared to leave, alarms blared again. The alarm was different this time. Higher pitched. More urgent. Valthar soldiers rushed into the throne room, their movements precise but hurried. Commander Krillnax immediately moved to a communications panel embedded in the wall. Report, he commanded. A soldier's voice came through, tight with stress. Commander, long-range sensors detect a massive Kresh fleet approaching. At least 30 warships. They'll be here within the hour. The throne room went silent. Queen Zarthix's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of agitation Kyle now recognized. 30 ships, she said. This is not a raid. This is an invasion force. Captain Holland activated his communicator. Horizon's Edge. Prepare for emergency departure. Captain, the reply came. We're detecting the Kresh fleet too. But sir, we're still docked. It'll take 15 minutes minimum to clear the docking clamps and seal the airlock. Do it as fast as you can, Holland ordered. He turned to Ambassador Martinez. We need to leave now. Agreed, Martinez said. She looked at Queen Zarthix. Your Majesty. We should evacuate. Evacuate. The Queen's voice carried an edge. This is my station. My territory. We do not flee from Kresh raiders. With respect, Your Majesty, Commander Krillnax said, 30 ships is more than raiders. Our defense force consists of 12 ships, and 3 of those are damaged from the last engagement. We cannot win this battle. Then we fight until we cannot fight anymore, the Queen declared. That is the Valthar way. Kyle stepped forward, ignoring the protest his bruised body gave. Your Majesty, Commander Krillnax is right. But maybe you don't have to choose between fighting and fleeing. Everyone looked at him. The Queen's compound eyes fixed on him with what felt like physical weight. Explain, she commanded. You said humans weaponize our intelligence, Kyle said. We don't usually win through superior strength. We win through tactics and strategy. You're thinking about this like a traditional battle. Ship against ship, strength against strength. But what if we don't fight that way? What are you suggesting? Commander Krillnax asked. Kyle's mind raced. He was a security officer, not a fleet commander. But he had studied tactics. Every human soldier did. The Kresh are coming in force because they think they can overwhelm you. They expect a direct confrontation. What if we give them something unexpected instead? Such as? The Queen asked. The station has weapons, correct? Heavy defensive platforms. Of course, Commander Krillnax said. 57 weapon emplacements, 8 of them capital ship grade. And the Kresh know this. They're bringing 30 ships to overwhelm your defenses. But what if the station isn't here when they arrive? What if the station Dildid is? By Amintas, the Valthar looked confused. The station is built into an asteroid, the Queen said. It cannot move. The asteroid can't, Kyle agreed, but you could evacuate everyone to your ships and position them on the far side of the asteroid. When the Kresh arrive, they'll find an apparently abandoned station. They'll board it, looking for loot and survivors. Then you hit them while they're scattered and vulnerable. Commander Krillnax's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. A trap. But they would detect our ships. Their sensors would find us. Not if we help, Captain Holland said, catching on to Kyle's plan. The Horizon's Edge has advanced stealth technology. We can project a jamming field. If your ships stay in the asteroid's sensor shadow, and we mask your energy signatures, the Kresh won't see you until it's too late. This is not honorable combat, Queen Zarthix said. The Valthar face their enemies openly. Your Majesty, Kyle said carefully. Honor is important. But so is survival. And winning. The Kresh aren't coming here for an honorable fight. They're coming to destroy you. Shouldn't you use every advantage to defend your people? The Queen was silent for a long moment. Then she looked at Commander Krillnax. Your assessment, Commander? The humans' plan could work, he admitted. It goes against our traditions, but our traditions assumed facing enemies of similar strength. 30 ships against 12 is not a fair fight already. Perhaps we should not fight fairly in return. You would need to evacuate the station completely, Ambassador Martinez added. Every Vilethar on board. Can that be done in an hour? In half that time, if necessary, the Queen said. She stood tall. Decision made. Very well. We will try this human tactic. Commander, begin evacuation procedures. All personnel to ships. Prepare to relocate to the far side of the asteroid. The throne room exploded into activity. Vilethar soldiers rushed to execute orders. Commander Krill Nax coordinated with ship commanders. The Queen herself moved to oversee the operation. Kyle felt a wave of dizziness. The adrenaline from the earlier fight was wearing off, and his injuries were making themselves known again. The Vilethar medical officer noticed and steadied him. You should not be standing, she said. You need rest. Can't rest yet, Kyle replied. Need to make sure this works. Ambassador Martinez gripped his shoulder. Kyle, you've done enough. More than enough. Let Captain Holland and the military personnel handle this. Ambassador's right, Holland said. Lieutenant Commander, you're injured. That's an order. Get back to the ship and let the medics look at you properly. Kyle wanted to argue, but his body agreed with them. Yes, sir. Jennifer Wu and Daniel Foster helped him walk. The corridors were full of Vilethar rushing to evacuation points. Despite the urgency, several soldiers paused to nod at Kyle as he passed. Word of the fight in the throne room had spread. They reached the horizon's edge, and the ship's medical officer, Julie Stevens, immediately took charge of Kyle. She was a tall woman, with gray-streaked blonde hair, and a no-nonsense attitude. Sit, she ordered, pointing at a medical bed. Might be faster to tell you the places that don't hurt. Kyle joked weakly. That bad? Stevens began scanning him with medical equipment. Broken ribs? Bruised, according to the Vilethar medic. I'll be the judge of that. Stevens worked efficiently, cleaning wounds, applying better bandages, and injecting something that made the pain recede to a manageable level. You're lucky. No breaks, no internal bleeding, but you're covered in bruises, and you've strained about a dozen muscle groups. You're going to hurt for a week. At least I'll be alive to hurt, Kyle said. Through the ship's communication system, they could hear Captain Holland coordinating with the Vilethar fleet. The evacuation was proceeding faster than expected. Vilethar ships were moving into position behind the asteroid. Julie Stevens finished her examination and sat down beside Kyle. I heard what you did. Fighting 3 alien warriors with your bare hands. That was either very brave or very stupid. Can it be both? She smiled slightly. I suppose it can. You know, when I signed up for diplomatic missions, I thought it would be boring. Stand around during meetings. Treat the occasional case of space sickness. I didn't expect combat. Neither did I, Kyle admitted. I thought I'd be a glorified bodyguard. Stand in corners and look serious. Instead, you became a one-man army. Stevens checked her instruments. Your heart rate is elevated. Stress from the situation? Probably. We're about to see if my plan works, or if I just convinced the Queen to make a terrible mistake. From what I heard, your plan is solid. Hit the enemy when they're vulnerable. Basic tactics. Basic for humans, Kyle said. But the Vilethar think differently. They value direct confrontation. Honor combat. I might have just talked them into abandoning their principles. Stevens was quiet for a moment. Then she said, I think you taught them that principles and pragmatism aren't enemies. Sometimes honor means protecting your people. Even if the method isn't traditional. The ship's intercom crackled. All personnel, evacuation complete. The station is empty. All Vilethar ships are in position. Kresh fleet will arrive in 20 minutes. Kyle wanted to be on the bridge, watching the battle unfold. But his body refused to cooperate. The medication Stevens had given him made him drowsy, and his muscles felt like liquid. "Rest," Stephen said firmly. "I'll wake you if something important happens." "Everything happening is important," Kyle protested. "Then I'll wake you if something specifically requires your input." "Which it won't, because you're not a fleet commander. You're an injured security officer who needs to let his body heal." Kyle wanted to argue, but exhaustion pulled at him. His eyes closed almost against his will. He dreamed of fighting. 3 Kresh warriors, endless and tireless, attacking again and again. But this time he was too slow, too tired. His techniques failed. The Kresh closed in. He woke with a start. Jennifer Wu was shaking his shoulder gently. "Easy," she said. "You were having a nightmare." Kyle sat up, wincing at the stiffness in his muscles. "How long was I out?" "About 30 minutes. The Kresh have arrived." "What's happening?" "Come see for yourself. Captain Holland said you'd want to watch." Jennifer helped him to the bridge. Captain Holland stood at the command console, watching multiple screens showing different views of the battlefield. Ambassador Martinez was there too, along with Commander Krill Nax, who had come aboard the Horizon's Edge to coordinate the joint operation. "Lieutenant Commander," Holland said. "Good timing. The Kresh are boarding the station now." On the screen, Kyle saw Kresh ships docking with the abandoned station. Soldiers poured through airlocks, searching the empty corridors. "They're confused," Commander Krill Nax said with satisfaction. "They expected resistance. Finding nothing makes them suspicious, but not suspicious enough to leave." Queen Zarthix's voice came through the communications system. She was on her flagship, hidden behind the asteroid. "They are greedy. They see an undefended prize, and cannot resist." Kyle watched as more and more Kresh boarded the station. Their ships were docked and stationary, perfect targets. "How many are inside?" he asked. "Approximately 80% of their force," Commander Krill Nax replied. "The remaining 20% stayed on their ships." "That's enough," Queen Zarthix declared. "All ships, attack formation." For the Valthar Empire, on the screens, the Valthar ships emerged from behind the asteroid, weapons firing. The Kresh ships, caught completely by surprise, tried to react, but they were docked and stationary. The Valthar had every advantage. The battle was short and decisive. Within 10 minutes, half the Kresh ships were destroyed or disabled. The rest tried to flee, but the Valthar pursued, cutting them down. "We've won," Commander Krill Nax said, his voice filled with amazement. "We're outnumbered 3-1, and we've won. Because we fought like humans," Queen Zarthix said, "with intelligence and tactics instead of brute force." There was a pause. "Lieutenant Commander Patterson, are you listening?" "Yes, Your Majesty," Kyle replied. "You saved us twice today. Once with your hands, once with your mind. The Valthar owe humanity a debt." Kyle looked at Ambassador Martinez, who was smiling. "Not a debt, Your Majesty," Kyle said. "A partnership. That's what allies do. They help each other." The victory celebration on the Valthar flagship was unlike anything Kyle had ever experienced. The ship's main hall was enormous, with ceilings 50 feet high and walls decorated with weapons from 100 conquered enemies. Valthar soldiers filled the space, their mandibles clicking in patterns that created a strange music. Kyle stood near Ambassador Martinez, still moving carefully due to his injuries. Julie Stevens had cleared him for light activity but warned him against anything strenuous. Not that he planned on fighting anyone tonight. Queen Zarthix entered the hall, and every Valthar immediately fell silent. She moved to a raised platform at the hall's center, her 6 arms gesturing for everyone to come closer. "Today," she began, her voice carrying across the massive space, "we won a battle that should have been impossible. 30 Kresh warships against 12 Valthar vessels. By every calculation, we should have lost. Instead, we achieved total victory with minimal casualties." She paused. "This victory belongs to our new allies. To humanity." The Valthar soldiers clicked their mandibles in approval. Kyle noticed that many of them were looking at him specifically. "I wish to tell you all what I witnessed today," the Queen continued. "I saw a human fight 3 Kresh warriors alone. without weapons, and defeat them all. I saw this human bleed and hurt, and continue fighting anyway. I saw him choose technique over strength, intelligence over brute force, and mercy over killing when given the choice. Commander Krillnak stepped onto the platform. I also wish to speak. This morning, I believed humans were weak. I thought their lack of natural weapons and armor made them inferior. I was profoundly wrong. Humans are not weak, they are the opposite. They are so strong that they never needed natural weapons. They developed their minds instead. They created thousands of fighting systems across thousands of years. They made their entire bodies into weapons. More clicking sounds, louder now. Kyle felt uncomfortable with the attention. This wasn't what he had intended. He had just been doing his job. Lieutenant Commander Kyle Patterson, the Queen said, looking directly at him. Approach. Kyle walked forward, trying not to limp. The crowd of Valthar soldiers parted to let him through. He climbed the steps to the platform and stood before the Queen, having to tilt his head back to meet her compound eyes. Kneel, she commanded. Kyle did, lowering himself to one knee. His bruised ribs protested, but he ignored the pain. The Queen extended one of her upper arms. In her hand was a crystalline structure, similar to the ones that grew naturally from Valthar bodies, but carved into a specific shape. This is a warrior's crystal, she explained. It is given only to those who have proven themselves in battle to be worthy of Valthar respect. In 5,000 years of our civilization, no non-Valthar has ever received this honor. She placed the crystal in Kyle's hand. You are the first. Wear it with pride. You have earned it. Kyle looked at the crystal. It was surprisingly light, catching the hall's lights and reflecting them in rainbow patterns. Your Majesty, I'm honored, but I was just— Do not say you were just doing your duty, the Queen interrupted. You exceeded every expectation. You fought when others would have run. You thought when others would have panicked. You taught us that true strength comes not from what you are born with, but what you choose to become. Kyle stood, the crystal clutched in his hand. The Valthar soldiers were clicking their mandibles in a rhythmic pattern that he realized was their form of applause. There's more, Commander Krillnak said. The Queen and I have discussed a proposal. We wish to establish a formal exchange program. Valthar warriors will train with human combat instructors. Human soldiers will learn Valthar military strategy and technology. We will share knowledge and become stronger together. Ambassador Martinez stepped onto the platform, having been invited up by the Queen. On behalf of humanity, we accept this proposal with gratitude. But we'd like to expand it beyond just military exchange, cultural exchange, scientific cooperation, trade agreements, a comprehensive alliance. Agreed, Queen Zarthik said without hesitation. The Valthar Empire formally recognizes humanity as an allied species. Your ships may travel freely through our territory. Your people are welcome on our worlds, and if you face threats, our fleets will come to your aid, as you came to ours today. Captain Holland had joined them on the platform. Your Majesty, speaking as a military officer, I can tell you that human commanders will be eager to learn from the Valthar. Your tactics and technology are impressive, as are yours, the Queen replied. The trap you suggested, using our disadvantage as bait and striking when the enemy was vulnerable, this is not a tactic we would have considered. We have always valued direct confrontation, but today we learned that the best victory is the one achieved with the least cost. The celebration continued for hours. Kyle found himself surrounded by Valthar soldiers wanting to hear about human combat techniques. He demonstrated basic moves, careful of his injuries, explaining principles of leverage and momentum. The Valthar were fascinated, their forearms giving them options humans didn't have, but the fundamental concepts applied. One young Valthar warrior, smaller than the others, approached Kyle hesitantly. Lieutenant Commander, may I ask a question? Of course. When you fought the Kresh warriors, were you afraid? Kyle considered lying, then decided honesty was better. Terrified, the entire time. The young warrior's mandibles clicked in surprise. But you did not run. You did not hesitate. Being brave doesn't mean not being afraid, Kyle explained. It means being afraid and acting anyway. Fear is information. It tells you there's danger, but you don't have to let it control you. This is a human philosophy? The warrior asked. One of many. Humans have learned that our greatest strength is our ability to overcome our limitations. We're small, so we learn to be quick. We're weak, so we learned technique. We're afraid, so we learned courage. The warrior nodded slowly. I would like to learn more about this. About human ways of thinking. That's what the exchange program is for, Kyle said with a smile. Maybe you'll be one of the Valthar who comes to train with us. I hope so, Lieutenant Commander. As the celebration continued, Kyle found a quiet corner to rest. His body was reminding him forcefully that he had pushed it too hard today. Julie Stevens appeared with a medical scanner and a disapproving look. You should be in bed, she said. Couldn't miss this, Kyle replied. It's not every day you help start an interspecies alliance. No, I suppose it isn't. Stevens scanned him quickly. Nothing worse than before. But you're not healing by standing around at parties. Come on, back to the ship with you. Kyle was about to argue when Queen Zarthix approached. Commander Krillnax at her side. Lieutenant Commander, the Queen said, you are leaving? Just going to rest, Your Majesty. Doctor's orders. Good. You have earned rest. She paused. Before you go, I have one more question. When I ordered my soldiers to hold position while you fought the Kresh, you said you understood why I did it. Explain what you understood, Kyle thought carefully. You needed to know what humans were capable of. Not what we claimed we could do, but what we could actually do when tested. Words mean nothing, actions mean everything. You gave me a chance to prove humanity's worth through actions. Exactly correct, the Queen said. And you did prove it. Not just your own worth, but your species. The Valthar respect strength, but we respect courage and intelligence even more. You showed us all three. She gestured to the hall full of celebrating soldiers. These warriors will remember today. They will remember the human who fought without weapons and won. They will remember the tactics that saved the station, and they will carry that knowledge into the future. I hope so, Your Majesty. I hope this alliance lasts for generations. Quote, I would rye. Quote, I hope this alliance lasts for generations. It will, Commander Krillnax said confidently. We have much to learn from each other. But I believe humans have more to teach us than we have to teach them. Don't sell yourself short, Commander, Kyle said. You've built an empire. You've created technology we can barely understand. You've survived in a harsh galaxy for thousands of years. We have plenty to learn from you. The Queen's mandibles clicked softly. Perhaps that is another human strength. Humility. The ability to recognize what you do not know, and the desire to learn it. Kyle returned to the horizon's edge with Julie Stevens, leaving the celebration behind. The ship was quiet, most of the crew still at the party. Stevens made him lie down in the medical bay and ran more scans. Everything looks good, she said. You'll be sore for a week, but you'll heal completely. No permanent damage. Good. I'd hate to think I peaked at 34. Stevens smiled. Something tells me you have a lot more stories ahead of you. This alliance will need military liaisons, people who understand both human and Valthar cultures. You're uniquely qualified now. Kyle hadn't thought about that. I'm just a security officer. You're the human who earned the Valthar's respect through combat. The one who fought barehanded and won. Like it or not, you're a symbol now. Kyle looked at the warrior's crystal the Queen had given him. It sat on the table beside his bed, reflecting the medical bay's lights. I didn't do it to become a symbol. I did it because it needed to be done. I know. That's probably why it worked. If you had been trying to impress them, they would have seen through it. But you were genuine. You fought to protect your people and theirs. That authenticity is what convinced them. Jennifer Wu appeared in the doorway. Kyle, Ambassador Martinez wants to see you when you're feeling up to it. She says it's not urgent. Just when you're ready. I can go now, Kyle said, starting to sit up. Stevens pushed him back down. You can go in an hour. After you've rested, and I've finished my evaluation. Doctor's orders, remember? Kyle lay back with a sigh. Yes, ma'am. An hour later, he made his way to Ambassador Martinez's office. She was reviewing documents on her tablet, but she set it aside when he entered. Kyle, sit please. How are you feeling? Sore, but alive. What did you need to see me about? Sign. The report I'm filing with Earth Command. It will include your actions today, all of them. The fight with the Kresh warriors, the tactical plan that saved the station, the impression you made on the Valthar. You should know that this report will likely change your life. Change it how? You'll be famous. The human who fought aliens barehanded and won. The one who helped establish first contact with a powerful empire. Command will want to use your experience. You might be assigned to the embassy when it's established. You might be asked to train Valthar warriors. You might become a liaison. Or an advisor. Kyle was quiet for a moment. I didn't join the diplomatic corps for fame. I joined because I wanted to serve. To protect people, and you did. You protected not just humans today, but Valthar too. That's the mark of a true alliance. When you fight for each other, as you would for your own people. Martinez leaned forward. Kyle, I need to know. Are you comfortable with this? With potentially becoming the face of human Valthar relations? Kyle thought about the young Valthar warrior who had asked about fear, about Queen Zarthix's speech recognizing human worth, about Commander Krillnax admitting he had been wrong, about the possibilities that lay ahead for both species. Yes, he said finally. If that's what's needed, I'll do it. Because today taught me something important. We're not alone in the galaxy anymore. We have allies, and allies need bridges between them. People who understand both sides. If I can be one of those bridges, then that's what I'll do. Martinez smiled. That's what I hoped you'd say. Welcome to the diplomatic service, Lieutenant Commander. Your real work is just beginning. 2 weeks later, Kyle stood in a training facility on the Valthar homeworld. 50 Valthar warriors filled the space, watching him with curious compound eyes. Commander Krillnax stood beside him, ready to translate concepts when needed. Today, Kyle said, we begin your training in human combat techniques. You have natural advantages. Forearms, strong exoskeletons, size, and strength. I'm going to teach you how to fight without relying on those advantages, because someday you might face an opponent who takes them away, or who has advantages you don't expect. A warrior in the front raised 2 of its arms. Why would we abandon our natural advantages? You're not abandoning them, Kyle explained. You're supplementing them, adding tools to your toolbox. Humans learned to fight without weapons because we had to. You can learn these same techniques while still using your natural advantages. It makes you more versatile, more adaptable. He demonstrated a basic throw, using a volunteer warrior's momentum against it. The warrior, easily twice Kyle's size, found itself on the ground before it understood what happened. The others clicked their mandibles in surprise and approval. That's lesson 1, Kyle said, helping the warrior back to its feet. Size and strength don't matter if you understand leverage and momentum. Lesson 2 is that anyone can learn these techniques. It's not about being exceptional, it's about being willing to learn and practice. He looked at the faces around him, alien and strange but watching with genuine interest and respect. Let's begin, he said, and the alliance between humans and Valthar, forged in combat and respect, took its first real steps into the future.